Hi everyone, my name is Timur Yunusov, and my presentation today is hand in your pocket without you noticing. And this presentation is a fascinating detective story about how we found vulnerabilities in Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and GPay mobile wallets. Normally research is done at home in a warm and safe environment, although this time I had to travel a lot and use London Underground. And this research was done during the national lockdown in the UK, and that meant that all non-essential travels were prohibited. So from one side, it was not a question if I could be fired if I would not finish this research in time. From another side, I obviously felt in a little bit of gray area. So from one side, I was doing my daily job, security research, by entering and leaving London Metro or London Tube, how it's called here. From another side, every time I was expecting someone approaching me and asking what the hell I'm doing here, passing the gates with some strange devices attached to my body and leaving straight away without actually traveling. That's why I put this presentation in this form of a detective story, the story I'm going to tell you today. And like in every detective story, we have suspects, we have some mystery, and we will have some unsolved questions that we will try to solve. Let me introduce you what general public thinks of mobile wallets, what banks and other companies like Apple, Samsung, how they present mobile wallets to the audience. For this purpose, we will look at the most common statements from media. Mobile wallets have overtaken contactless cards in Australia in 2021. Almost 50 million train journeys were made using contactless payments within the UK only within 1 month. So it's quite a lot. Mobile wallets are more secure than payment cards. Digital wallets, and obviously their owners, are well protected against fraud. We were doing security research about payment cards and card terminals for quite a while, and after our last research in that field and all these fascinating statements about how amazing mobile wallets are, we have decided to make our own little investigation and ask a few questions ourselves. So this is the main body of this detective story, so our mystery we will try to solve. So these questions are: could mobile wallet security actually protect your wallet if the phone was stolen? Are you liable for the fraud if someone had stolen your phone? And if it's not you liable, who is liable then? Why are we talking mostly about lost or stolen devices? Well, simply because it's very hard to clone EMV cards and their descendants, mobile wallets. That's why the main type of fraud against these cards and wallets is known as lost and stolen, when malicious actors use stolen devices or cards to make purchases without knowing a PIN or any other cardholder's secrets. And last statistics from the UK finance body is like in 2020 it was almost 80 million pounds lost within a year, with more than 300,000 cases of lost and stolen fraud. And surprisingly, these numbers are around 20% less than average statistics over the previous 4 years. So before, numbers were almost 100 million pounds, when last year it was dropped 20%. Okay, it's 20% less. However, it's still 80 million pounds, almost 80 million pounds lost. Before we'll go into our investigation, let me quickly make an overview of the history of EMV and wallets. So EMV is standing for Europay, Visa, and Mastercard, and it has come in the 90s to tackle different issues related to magstripe and card not present transactions. So these issues meant to be solved using smart card on your EMV card. So smart card is used for 3 security features: offline authentication, cardholder verification, and transaction authorization. We are already talking about all the security features, and for the purpose of today's presentation, we will focus only on one security feature, transaction authorization that is made with the transaction cryptogram. When you're paying with your mobile wallet, payment terminal will request at the end a cryptogram using a generate AC command, generate application cryptogram. Terminal will present a lot of fields that are required by a mobile wallet, like amount, currency, date, unique number. It's worth noting that not all of these fields will be the part of the payment cryptogram, as we found in 2018 during our previous research. And then mobile wallet take all this data and create a digital signature HMAC digest from using 3DES from all these essential fields, and that will be a payment cryptogram. If we are talking about the cards, this cryptogram will be checked in the issuing bank on the HSM hardware secure module. But what happens in terms of mobile wallets? So how mobile wallet works? The main feature of the mobile wallet is a tokenization process. So card details that you will enter in your phone then will be sent to the tokenization service of Visa or Mastercard. And if your issuing bank will confirm that you entered all the requisites correctly and you are an actual customer, a card holder, your card will be replaced with a token on your mobile phone instead. So think of token as of a virtual card with some limitations that is issued by Visa or Mastercard. And from now on, each transactions will be authorized on the tokenization service, not in your issuing bank. So all in the risk-based steps, all cryptographic features, all cryptographic steps will be happening either on the device mobile wallet that is certified by Visa or Mastercard, or on the tokenization service of Visa and Mastercard. First of all, Apple and Samsung and Google here, they do not process payment data. They just do some things on the edge device and then send it to Visa and Mastercard. And all magic will happen somewhere else. So it's not easy to implement any changes even on the device, because these devices are certified by Visa and Mastercard, and you can't just inform Apple or Samsung saying, hey, we found this vulnerability, so you need to change that. They will say, hey, we are certified, we can't just implement any random changes. And bank in this picture, your issuing bank, basically will just check that you have enough money on your account, that your card was not locked, marked or stolen, and potentially will get some additional metadata like the merchant, that time, date, but they will not bother by analyzing EMV fields, do all risk management checks, because it's not their responsibility anymore. From now on, it's the problem of Apple or Visa, for example. And this is the source of the problem. So now when you have some background, we'll start the narrative of our investigation. In 2019, we looked at GPay, that by that time was the only mobile wallet allowing payments on locked devices. When Apple and Samsung actually required their phones to have passcodes and to be unlocked during the payments. And that became a big obstacle for the transport system. As is shown in the beginning, money that are spent using on transportation are really big. That's why in 2019, both Apple and Samsung had introduced their transport systems or transit systems. So what does it mean? You choose one of your cards that are enrolled on your mobile wallet, set it up as a default transport card, and from now on, you can use this card without unlocking your phone when you pay, for example, in London Underground. So that was the winter of 2019 when I decided to go and test Apple Pay transport cards using TfL, Transport for London terminals. I was equipped with Proxmark attached to my iPhone, a few wires covered with my clothes, and a rooted jailbroken iPhone, and I started tapping and recording all the traffic and events on the phone, trying to find how exactly this feature works. It would be fair to say that I was quite disappointed when I saw nothing unusual in traffic. So, as a normal transaction with normal card, you have a wake up call that is sent by the NFC reader, and if that activates the NFC field, then you get the anti-collision information exchange, and then you will get the first PayPass or PayWave request, which is called APDU request. But the problem is that if you're trying to send wake up NFC command using a normal NFC reader on locked iPhone, you can't get anything back. So I was expecting some other additional information being exchanged and sniffed, but I didn't see anything. After a while, I became a little bit paranoid, had some odd ideas how they may, I don't know, use GPS data or some other, say, channel information being exchanged in order to activate the NFC field. But I didn't find anything like that. After months of unsuccessful journeys to London Underground, considerations of buying a TFL reader, myself digging all over the internet about how Transport Reader works, how Apple Transit works, Apple Value Additional Services, which is the main idea of these additional features on Apple Pay. I finally got an announcement that Samsung had introduced their own transport scheme, and I was thinking, well, okay, that's another chance then. It turned out quickly that even if Samsung Pay phone is locked, NFC fields still always work and interacts with just a regular NFC reader. So I was very excited to check and look how exactly they ensure that payment is made in public transport. So this is an example of a cryptogram request for Visa transport card on the locked Samsung phone. You have the generate application cryptogram header. Then you have a terminal transaction qualifiers that indicate that offline data authentication is required. You see terminals do not authorize transactions online instead, because it will take much longer time, and that will create a massive backlog for people who are trying to get into Underground. Instead of that, they're using offline data authentication to ensure that the card is genuine and doing online authorization with a slight delay. That's why you don't get notifications that you spend money immediately. Then you have the merchant name and location in the request that indicates that this is that was done in on the Bond Street station. Then you have additional fields, amount, currency, date, so on and so on. And amount here is 0. So at the beginning, NFC reader, NFC terminal on London Underground tries to authorize you with £0 or 0 whatever. And in back, phone will provide a cryptogram type indicating that this is an online cryptogram, ARQC application transaction counter, card verification results, which is sort of risk management results from the card side. Will also indicate that this is ARQC cryptogram was returned, and the cryptogram itself. So the payment cryptogram, as I said already, it's a 3-dash digital signature of all essential fields like amount, currency, application transaction counter, CVR, and so on. The question was, can I use this stolen locked Samsung phone with transport Visa card to buy, for example, products in McDonald's? And the answer, unfortunately, was no. You see, if TTQ does not require offline authentication or amount is not equal to 0, Samsung phone will respond with 6985, which stands for conditions of use not satisfied. That's why you can't go and buy something from McDonald's, because the price will not be 0. Okay, what if Mastercard is a default transport card then? Same request, generate AC in a slightly different format, also indicates that card requires an offline data authentication, and Mastercard always requires offline data authentication. Amount is 0. Instead of name of merchant, they provide the merchant category code, which also is a subset of transport for 111, and other fields, amount, currency, so on and so on. And pretty much the same answer back. Now, what is going to happen if we will try to pay again, let's say in McDonald's? Yeah, if amount is not 0, or if MCC merchant category code is not transferred, instead of 6985, phone will provide an AEC cryptogram. So AEC cryptogram is a decline cryptogram, also used for further risk management, risk assessment, for probably some fraud or things like that. So it has a different cryptogram type field. It has the same consecutive application transaction counter, so will be the previous transaction +1, and then +1, and so on. In CVR field, you also will see that AEC cryptogram was returned, which I didn't know at the beginning. And you get the cryptogram, which looks pretty much the same because it's HMAC, you don't understand what is inside, right? So the question was again, can I use this data to make a purchase? And I had a gut feeling, very strong one, that the answer was yes. So you see, I looked at that as if all they have done is they've changed the cryptogram type field, and everything else was looking the same, and that's why they probably use the same HMAC function from the same data and create a cryptogram. So all I needed to do is to change the cryptogram type from 00 back to 80, online cryptogram. And I didn't need to change ATC, nothing. So I tried to do this using man-in-the-middle attack, but at the beginning, unfortunately, transaction didn't go through because of a very simple reason. If any fields are modified during the communication between Mastercard wallet or card and a terminal, transaction will be declined because of offline data authentication checks. They check all the fields that were exchanged using the public key encryption, and that's why transaction is cancelled on the terminal. And here, one very good research helped me out. In 2020, researchers from the ETH University in Zurich had shown how Mastercard cards can pretend to be Visa cards and therefore bypass mandatory offline data authentication, because for Visa cards, it's not mandatory in most of the terminals. So this is how the attack looks in the end. So step 1, you need to pretend to be a Visa wallet for the terminal using card brand mixup attack. Then you're requesting a payment cryptogram from the locked Samsung phone, getting an AEC cryptogram back, and you replace the cryptogram type field from AEC to ARQC online cryptogram, and presenting the AEC cryptogram CVR fields that will confirm that this is AEC to the terminal, then to acquiring and issuing bank, to the tokenization, in fact. And cryptogram, this type of cryptogram, surprisingly, will be accepted on Mastercard tokenization service, which is called MDES. So this is a video. We have a phone, Samsung phone, we have a reader, and our man-in-the-middle configuration. So we are trying to make a payment, and you see that phone thinks that payment actually didn't go through. However, it did go through, and you also see that terminal thinks that this is a Visa card because of the card brand mix-up attack, but in fact it is a Mastercard card. So now the remaining question was, is there any other way I could actually attack Visa cards? So the answer is yes. Let's see in details what exact information terminal sends to the bank during the authorization request. So the payment terminal sends the authorization request that is described in ISO 8583, and where it presents a card number, masked card number, amount, track2 equivalent, also masked. And if you're talking about EMB transactions or NFC transactions, it will have an additional field which is called field 55, where it contains all tags and values that terminal and card exchange in one big chunk. So you see here that you have amount in two places. So first place in is field 02, where terminal asks how much exactly money should be charged. And the second is in field 55, which shown what exact amount Cryptogram has signed. And if you have the access to these ISO fields, which is called transaction stream fraud, you can basically put one amount in the actual charged field, 02, but in the ICC data field, it still will be 0 and it still be working. So this is how attack against Visa cards on Samsung Pay looks like. We are requesting and stealing a cryptogram for 0.00 from the locked Samsung phone. Then we are making an ISO 8583 authorization request where we put our cryptogram from a transaction stream with a different amount, which is not 0. And even though cryptogram will be accepted on the Visa tokenization services, which stands for VTS, and £1 will be charged from this stolen cryptogram. So I was very pleased to confirm all these findings by using a few different cards, and I informed Samsung about them, Mastercard, Visa. But after a few weeks, I still had very itchy feet and really wanted to crack on with Apple Pay. By that time, I still didn't know how to activate NFC field on the phone, on the iPhone. So the only type of terminals that would work for me were located in London Underground. That's why I had to travel a lot. And I realized that I could actually apply the same scenario as is shown with Visa card on Samsung Pay with modification on point of sales against Apple Pay. So all I need to do is to steal £0 cryptogram from Apple Pay when I tap an iPhone in London Underground and then put it in a transaction stream at home. And I figured out how exactly to do that. So idea is quite simple. I took Proxmark and I tried to pay with my locked iPhone and then pull out the phone in the very last second before transaction will be finished and the purchase will be authorized. So as you know, it took sometimes quite a while to hold the phone around the London Underground tap NFC reader. And so the idea is to steal the transaction before all the exchange will be finished and sniff this transaction and reuse it later. So you see, Visa cards normally exchange a lot of information after the transaction cryptogram has been presented, when Mastercard cards normally present all the data before and cryptogram right at the end. So if I would be able to intercept the cryptogram, but the payment would not go through, I could take this cryptogram, put it in the transaction stream, modify the amount, and reuse this cryptogram and see if transaction will be accepted or not. After a few more trips to London Underground, that worked out, so I was pleased again. But after that, I really got into quite a desperation phase. I urgently needed to understand how to activate transport mode on iPhones. So I had a few options there. I was using the help of my colleague Artem, who is a reverse engineer, and I used the help of Alexei, who's also my ex-colleague. We made a lot of research together, who is a hardware engineer. and Artem was trying to implement some hooks into jailbroken iOS, trying to reverse engineer the Apple Pay binaries, when Alex simply recommended me to use Hydra NFC instead of Proxmark. So surprisingly, it turns out that Proxmark is a little bit raw product for some features, where Hydra NFC is more substantial. And Hydra NFC actually had shown something to me. So before the first wake-up call, I started seeing this short 15 bytes string. In fact, by that time, I was thinking that Apple will use something like Value Additional Services, Apple VAS, that uses public key exchange. So I was expecting some really, really long strings with public keys and things like that, and I could not expect that only one short 15-byte string could do this magic. But I tried a few times to replay this special string, and guess what? So you see the iPhone is even dead, yeah, and it has, you even have a notification that you still can use transport cards even the iPhone is uncharged. And here you go, the card is read from the uncharged iPhone. Now let's look more in details what information Apple Wallet requests and how does it react if fields are satisfying. So amount for Apple Pay could be anything, which is surprising. Maybe they are preparing for some other transportation systems which don't require transactions only for Zira. I don't know, but they check MCC field and it should be transport. And if MCC field is not transport, Apple phone will respond 6986, which stands for command not allowed. And by that time, we found this around June 2021. Mastercard has already fixed card brand mix-up attack, so I was not able to do the same things and bypass tampering of MCC codes. So how attack would look after 2021? We are requesting a cryptogram from locked Apple phone, for £1, £2, £3, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then we use modified point of sale to insert cryptogram in a transaction stream fraud in transaction stream to bypass offline data authentication on the terminal. And this cryptogram, again, will be accepted on the Mastercard tokenization service, and that's. As we mentioned before, Apple Pay doesn't check that if the amount is zero or not. And I started thinking, okay, then probably that means that I would be able to pay with Visa cards. So again, Visa requires offline data authentication, which still doesn't matter because the cryptogram is presented in a plain text. Amount could be anything, and then back it will return an additional normal ARQC cryptogram with everything will be working as normal. So this is an example of demo I've recorded around June. We have the latest iPhone with the latest operating system, reader and payment for £1, and our man-in-the-middle device sends this 15-byte string right before trying to create a bridge between the terminal and the phone. And here you go, card is activated, transaction being completed, purchase being successful. So this is our detective story. And like in every detective story, we had suspects, we had some mystery, and we had even some unsolved questions. So mystery here was how to make payments on locked and lost Apple or Samsung phones using Apple or Samsung Pay. And prime suspects here were obviously Apple, Samsung, Visa, and Mastercard. And we had done our own technical expertise that had shown how is it possible to conduct such a crime. But more interesting is how to avoid that. So what mobile wallet vendors and card systems have done wrong. Main problem here is inconsistency. As you can see, mobile phone presents an AC cryptogram for a declining, where Visa and Mastercard accepts AC cryptogram as an online cryptogram. And mobile vendors and card vendors should work together. And instead of that, Samsung and Apple, they both claimed during the responsible disclosure process that the problems we've sent to them are not on their side, they're lying somewhere else and will pass in information to Visa and Mastercard, which we never heard back from, unfortunately. Next, CDA, the most modern form of offline data authentication, is a very powerful tool. Yeah, a very powerful instrument, allows spotting any tampering of any data. We also would recommend to put MCC or merchant name as a part of the cryptogram input. I don't know why still no card brands do this. Another thing is that, for example, Mastercard puts a PIN verification status in the CVR field. So if the phone was unlocked, they will put the PIN, that offline PIN verification has been conducted. And that would mean that the purchase can be made anywhere. However, if this bit is not indicated that PIN verification wasn't done, that means that in this case, payments should be done only within the limited merchant category codes like transport. For mobile wallets, there is obviously also some sort of remediation, such as do not present AEC cryptogram at all, and return application transaction counter equal to 00 for not all non-essential type of cryptograms. And obviously, in terms of Apple, it would be really nice if they would finally implement some real secure authentication process for transport systems, like they use in Apple value additional services such as public key environment or infrastructure. So now you see a little bit whole picture from a previous slide of the whole payment process, and you see that green parts are parts where they are responsible for money, they are money holders, and they are people or entities who will be suffering from fraud, where red parts are someone within this process who actually could and should do something. Unfortunately, they don't. So let's just look at the simple example. Someone had stolen your phone, you didn't have a chance to block the card, and if anyone would apply some of our findings to make purchases in store, fraudulent purchases, let's say buy an expensive mobile phone in the supermarket, what's going to happen? Yeah, you'll get a notification of the purchase, call your bank, block the card. But after a short investigation, your Russian bank won't even have a proof that you actually did not disclose your PIN to anyone, or that it was not you who made this fraudulent purchase. They simply can't see that the phone was not unlocked, because tokenization services normally do not pass them such an information. Yeah, obviously mobile vendors would claim that it's simply impossible to pay using locked devices, and they're generally trying to stay away from payment data, and they would be like, okay, you need to speak to your issuing bank, this is none of our business. Yeah, and at the end, they all probably will say that you should block cards as soon as you've realized that your phone is lost. So our statistics shown when we tested 8 different Mastercard cards that 4 were vulnerable to this type of attacks. 2 were able to even we were able to make purchases in any terminals with 2 of them. 2 other required modified terminals means that cryptogram should be put directly in a transaction stream. Surprisingly, none of Russian cards that we've tested, Mastercard cards, were not vulnerable. That means that different countries have different rules on their Mastercard tokenization service, where Visa cards were vulnerable from all regions that we've seen. We also tested Apple Pay cards, Samsung Pay, and additional vulnerabilities that we found on GPay against Mastercard cards. You can look at these findings in our white paper, and unfortunately, none of vendors we reached out never got back to us with anything promising, so they were either playing hot potato, trying to shift responsibility one to each other, or didn't come back to us at all. So thanks for everyone especially who helped me with this project, with the submission, with slides, with preparations. You are awesome, guys. Download the white paper from paymentvillage.org. You can find more statistics, all the technical details, all the information against GPay. You will find out what CryptoATC stands for, why I'm Stripe still working on every GPay, Mastercard cards, and so on. Thanks so much.